the Evolution Security Podcast. This episode of the Evolution Security Podcast is brought to you by Tenacor. Tenacor is an American design, development, manufacturing, and training company building products that work. They are innovators that come from a law enforcement and training background with years of experience. They produce industry-leading quintessential gear and build their clientele into capable protectors. Please visit Tenacor.com and support their business as they support this community. Also like them on Facebook and follow on Instagram at Tenacor USA, Tenicor, Tenacor. Welcome to the Evolution Security Podcast, where we give you the knowledge and live training to protect yourself, your family, and your country. Find a class schedule and upcoming events on our website, evosec.org. That's www.evosec.org. Follow us on Instagram at EvoSecUSA. Find other episodes of our podcast on iTunes and Stitcher, where you can subscribe, review, and share with your friends. Hey everybody, welcome to the show. Here again, Brian with Eric and Aaron. How you guys doing?
Doing great.
Hey, doing great. Always a lot of fun getting together and talking with you guys.
Well, you're going to have to enjoy it because this show is just us. No guests this week, so we're going to have fun and talk about some interesting subjects. You know, it's nice to just get together with people like minds and have some of these conversations because really gets to help enhance what you know and you get to learn what other people know. So that's one of the things I'm looking forward to this week. But we're going to start. Aaron's got a really nice quote from us, and these quotes always surprise me because when he reads this, pay attention to when he says this was actually written. So what do you got there?
Okay. The Constitution preserves the advantage of being armed, which Americans possess over the people of almost every nation, where the governments are afraid to trust the people with arms. Now that's James Madison from the Federalist paper number 46.
Hey, thanks for bringing that to the show this week, Aaron. I always enjoy what you guys have to bring on that stuff. We're going to do a self-defense case this week where we're going to talk about a case where, another good guy prevailed, and that's not always the case. But in this situation, he was able to use a weapon to defend himself in his home. And I would like to point out before I read it that this could not be found, and I searched on any major news outlet. And I want to point out that this is a situation where a homeowner used an assault rifle, and I don't even like to use that term, but that's what everybody calls them, and actually stopped a robbery from occurring. And he did not escape unscathed, but he was actually able to use that weapon very effectively to stop what would have probably resulted in his death. So this story comes from Florida, from the Ocala Star-Banner. Austin L. Miller was the reporter here. So this is from Summerfield. Marion County Sheriff's officials say a homeowner armed with an AR-15 shot and killed 2 intruders and was injured himself during a home invasion robbery in Summerfield Wednesday night. 2 other robbery suspects, Robert John Hamilton, 19, of Ocala, and Seth Adam Rodriguez, 22, of Bellevue, were detained near the scene, according to the Marion County Sheriff's Office. Nigel Doyle, 22, of Summerfield, and Keith Jackson Jr., 21, Ocala, were killed. The homeowner, whose name was not released by the Sheriff's Office, was in stable condition at a hospital Thursday afternoon. Rodriguez was arrested on charges of murder and home invasion robbery with a firearm. Hamilton faces home invasion robbery with a firearm. Both men were being held in the Marion County Jail without bond. Deputies got the call at 8:21 p.m. Wednesday night and went to the home in response to a report of shots fired. Sergeant Micah Moore found Doyle with a gunshot wound and a shotgun next to him on the ground. Deputies entered the home and found Jackson dead on the dining room floor. Detectives said he was wearing a Jason mask on top of his head, gloves on both hands, jeans, and a black shirt. Near Jackson's head was a semi-automatic pistol, detectives said. Continuing into the home, deputies found the 61-year-old homeowner in a bedroom. He had an AR-15 rifle on his legs and was bleeding from a gunshot wound to the stomach, according to sheriff's officials. Doyle and the homeowner were transported to Ocala Regional Medical Center, where Doyle died. Deputies continued to search the area. Deputy Austin Kuhn and Canine Deputy Alberto Gago, with his dog Nitro, found Rodriguez and Hamilton in the 15,000 block of Southeast 36th Avenue, according to arrest reports. Rodriguez was hiding in tall grass on the side of the road. He was wearing sweatpants and a purple shirt. Hamilton was wearing all black clothing. The mobile home where the shooting occurred is on a 20-acre lot with dense woods and a single-lane dirt driveway. The distance from a gate to home is roughly 300 yards. Deputies found a Volkswagen parked near the south side of the home. The front doors were open. Deputies recovered a pump-action shotgun on the ground next to the front porch. They reported smelling a strong odor of marijuana at the home. The homeowner told Detective Travis O'Cole that about an hour before the shooting, a male who he barely remembers from a past Craigslist transaction knocked on the front door, according to sheriff's officials. The homeowner said he did not open the door, but saw the male peering through a back sliding glass door. He said he asked the male what he was doing and was told he needed help with his vehicle. The homeowner said he told the individual he was disabled and couldn't help him. That person then left, and the homeowner went to sleep. The homeowner told the detective that he was awakened by a loud noise and grabbed his AR-15, which was near his bed. He saw a masked person inside the home, he said, and he and the intruders exchanged gunfire. He said he shot at the man in the mask and at a second person coming toward him. The homeowner said it was Jackson who shot him. Detectives Ian Simpson and Little Lytle interviewed Rodriguez and Hamilton. According to arrest reports, Rodriguez said he, Hamilton, and Doyle and Jackson were at Doyle's home earlier in the day, and that Doyle and Jackson planned to rob the Summerfield home for marijuana and guns. They left Doyle's home in Jackson's car and went there, the report states. Rodriguez and Hamilton kicked in the front door, and Doyle and Jackson rushed inside. Rodriguez said he heard gunshots from the homeowner. Rodriguez and Doyle had given him a BB gun at the doorway. He said he ran away and got rid of the weapon. Hamilton told the detectives he got out of the car before the robbery and walked down the street. He denied being at the scene. After the interviews, both men were arrested. Detectives secured the crime scene on Wednesday night and returned to the home on Thursday morning to execute a search warrant on the property. They concluded their search in the afternoon and collected firearms, shell casings, and other evidence. Local court records show 2 of the 4 suspects have criminal records. Hamilton was found guilty in 2018 and served time for grand theft. Doyle was adjudicated guilty in 2017 for DUI and possession of ammunition by a delinquent in 2017. As for the homeowner, detectives said there are no charges against him and nothing prevents him from owning guns. Neighbors interviewed by the Star Banner said he usually keeps to himself and normally says hi when they see him leaving his property. That's the end of the article, and that was actually from July 11th, 2019, this year. So I believe that actually occurred on July 10th. So that is a current story that just happened, and yet we didn't see any of that in the media. What are your thoughts on that, Aaron?
One important point I would like to make, guys, is that, of course, we're not excited at all that 2 young men are dead here, right? We're simply pointing out this is a prime example, a real-life example, where the effectiveness of a modern semi-automatic rifle is probably the only reason the victim is still alive. But yet, again, we have to answer the question all the time, why do you need an AR-15? The point is that these were actually professional, armed, and there were multiple intruders, and these events actually occur all the time. But this is, I would say, from what I read here, these were some pretty special criminals because they came there armed. There were, in this story, it sounds like there were at least 3 live firearms that they came ready to use. They knew the homeowner was armed. They knew he had guns because they said they were going there to rob him of them. They knew that they were ready. They were going in there ready for a gunfight. That's a bad situation. And I'll tell you what, that is precisely the type of time that a homeowner would need an AR-15.
Yeah, I see some good security lessons from this. First, I want to say great on the good guy. He won this fight. Think about him having to try to defend himself against 4 assailants with just a pistol or even just a shotgun. I think he would have had a real tough time, and I'll just second what you said, Aaron, that he probably won this fight because he had an AR-15, had a semi-automatic modern rifle. But we also want to take away some other lessons learned which could possibly help him be de-escalated from this situation altogether. And, for us to kind of learn from this as well. Number one is proximity. I think, essentially he's out in a secluded area, a 20-acre lot. It sounds like he had a long driveway. Who knows how good his fence was? He had known drugs possibly, which, we don't condone that, but, it doesn't sound like he had much on him or else he likely would have been arrested himself. There was mention of a Craigslist transaction. Makes you wonder if the Craigslist transaction was firearms related. Was it on his property? Meaning that people or these gentlemen could have had knowledge of what he had on the premises. This is a good example of being cased. So, and fourthly, he mentioned at the door saying, "Hey, I can't help you. I'm disabled." Which good on him. He kind of de-escalated the situation at that point. But maybe it would have been better to say, "Hey, sorry, I can't help you. I'll call a tow service for you." And maybe it's possible that he could have been deselected. But again, not beating up on the good guy. We just also want to learn from a few things per sec or OPSEC that could help us be de-escalated. And I'll circle back to also maybe having cameras, having an alarm system. We don't know if he had any of those, but those also help. But, those are a few of the lessons that I took from this. What about you, Brian? What else you got?
Hey, yeah, thanks for those points, guys. And I do want to point out just real quick, because even a couple of my friends have said, when you do these defense cases, you're kind of speculating what happened. It's like, well, we're never going to have the luxury of talking to these people in person. And really the reason we do these is because we want to open up our own minds to what may or may not happen if we're ever presented with one of these situations. So that's really, we're taking something that was important and happened, and we have some facts, and we really just want to talk about and create a conversation so that we're thinking about how we would react in that situation. So I just want to throw that out there. But definitely, I kind of agree with you, Eric, on the kind of, the security end of this. If someone's knocking on my back door and peering in my windows and I'm conversing with him, I'm going to tell him I'm calling the cops. Number one. Number two, you probably should call the cops because this guy went to bed after this weird encounter with this guy on his back porch peering in his windows, and then was, awakened by, couple dudes coming into his house with guns, and that's not a situation that many of us want to occur, And again, like Aaron mentioned, these guys had intent. They showed up with guns and disguises to rob a guy that owned guns, to intentionally take his guns. That's not typically a situation where the homeowner winds up breathing in the end. That's one that we really, this is kind of the worst scenario possible. I mean, I can't think of a worse situation to be in than having criminals that are not afraid to break these laws showing up with guns with the intent of taking what I own, because they wouldn't think twice about ending my life if that's why they're there. So this is like a big deal. And that's, again, I'm disappointed that we don't get better coverage on this, because it's something that shows that there is a purpose for this. There's some things about the story that don't necessarily sit well with me, like the Craigslist deal and stuff. I definitely try to avoid, whenever I can, one, sell anything on Craigslist, but two, if I've got an item I got to get rid of. I sold a trailer recently. I met the guy at work. I only responded to emails. I didn't even, provide a phone number. I made sure that it, was done in a public place at my place of business, and was conducted very cleanly. So it's hard to completely eliminate any personal data in a situation like that. But even in that situation, even the title that he got had my PO box on it, didn't have my personal address on it. So that's some of those things that could happen where you have a conversation with a guy, even you sell something, and seems like he's a cool guy, but he's actually just mining information from you to find out if you're a target. That's happened before. So there are a lot of ways that bad people try to infiltrate your entity and figure out whether or not you have something they want. And I definitely want to limit that. So, that's nothing that I want to be involved with. Do you have any follow-up thoughts there, Aaron?
I sure do, guys. And this is an opportune time to say, the EvoSec crew here, we're terribly saddened by the mass murders that occurred in Texas and in Ohio. But it always brings up issues of gun control again. And although it's not talked about that much in this instance, because they've kind of moved on to more palpable laws, I believe, but there's always the issue with so-called assault weapons, a made-up term, of course, but it's always about semi-automatic rifles, because, of course, that's what one of the, I think maybe both the perps use. Now, the point is, from the FBI uniform crime reports, you are 5 times more likely to be murdered with knives or cutting instruments than with a rifle. And by the way, they're listing rifles here, and they are not, differentiating between semi-automatic rifles. It's just all rifles in general. You're more likely to be murdered by a blunt object such as a club or a hammer, or specifically hands, feet, and fists. The point that is really important is that rifles are used in 3% of firearms deaths. The majority of firearms deaths are, of course, committed by people that use pistols. Now, the question would be, why aren't they focusing on pistols? Well, that's a question for another day, because they've tried that before, especially in California, and it did not work out well. So again, I think that's why they changed their message. But another thing that I would like to talk about, which is, I think, going to be able to take us into one of our main topics that we're going to talk about on the show, is, again, along the lines of, why would you need something like an AR-15? Why don't you just use a pistol for your home defense weapon? Well, I even got into a internet argument with a guy that believed the myth that cartridges like the 5.56 223 are an overpenetration concern compared to pistol rounds, and that's why he chose a pistol caliber carbine for his home defense weapon. Well, that is actually a myth. 5.56 in almost every version of it has less penetration and less overpenetration than almost all typical pistol rounds. For instance, my favorite round, the actual load, the Federal Premium HST 124 grain 9mm, has an average depth in bare gelatin of over 18 inches. On the other hand, your military M855 has a penetration of about 13 inches. But here's the key. It has less penetration, but yet it is a way more effective round because of the damage it does to animal tissue or threat tissue, significantly more than cartridge ammunition. But one of the keys, and we don't need to get into this a whole lot, but one of the main issues is when that people are concerned about these rifle rounds, specifically AR-15 rounds, going through walls when people miss. There have been studies after studies that have proven that as a myth also. We can go into that more on another show, but suffice it to say, 223 5.56 is actually quite a bit safer than pistol rounds that actually cake drywall and things like that into their hollow points and become wad cutters and shoot through lots of walls.
Aaron, if I can pick that up, essentially, we can go into the studies at another date, like you stated, but it has been proven through various methodologies, gelatin with denim, that pistol rounds retain more energy and penetration afterwards. It's just a fact. And I know this is a little bit anecdotal, but back when I was taking a carbine class from Jeff Gonzalez, back when I was a soldier, he had stated that back in the days when he was in the SEALs, that they did countless tests using 5.56 rounds through sheetrock, and definitively saw that pistol was over penetrated more than those rifle rounds. So again, anecdotal, but that's another real world experience to add to it. But Brian, your thoughts? Oh, go ahead, Aaron.
I was just going to say that I believe, I'm looking for it in my research, but I believe that there is a good article out there from Dr. Gary Roberts, who again is, people that don't know about him, he is definitely today probably the foremost ballistics wound expert in the country. Second only to Dr. Martin Fackler, who has since passed away. But Dr. Roberts has done his own studies on 5.56, and definitely he came to the same conclusions too, that it was a safer round for over-penetration concerns than your typical pistol cartridges.
Yeah, and I definitely think that we could go down this rabbit hole for a long time, but I also want to point out that a lot of the test data that you look at is going to be FMJ, ammo, like standard military ammo. And in my home defense gun, I've either got Hornady tap or some type of hollow point or ballistic tipped ammunition, and the velocity that those exit the gun, when they impact anything, they come apart. Mm-hmm. They actually cause intense shock and trauma at the point of entry. They don't pass through much of anything. I mean, seriously, they if they touch anything, they come apart, and that's what they're meant to do. And although a 9mm can cause lots of damage, and I definitely don't want to get shot with either one, there's definitely a lot to be said about how fragile those 5.56 self-defense bullets are when they actually impact something. And I also want to be clear, we're not saying don't have, a 9mm. 9mm ARs are a blast to shoot, and if you're doing any type of sporting stuff with them, that we're not poo-pooing that. We just want to talk about the fact that 5.56 round is really a very good defense round, and I agree with everything you guys have said. And that being said, I own several 9mm ARs, but those are for sporting and fun, and because they take my Glock mags, and that's why I have those. But for self-defense, I still believe that 5.56 is a better weapon.
Well, and I was just going to say along the lines that you're talking about, Brian, the damage at impact. I'm looking at some data here. Essentially, so again, the pistol cartridge penetrates significantly more, but it has a permanent wound cavity that is that peaks at about 6 inches in ballistic gelatin, and it peaks at about an inch in diameter. But the 5.56, again, less penetration, it also has a peak permanent cavity at about 6 inches. But that wound cavity is actually at least 3 inches in diameter. So there is significant amount of kinetic energy that is being expended very quickly. So again, so that's why this is a round that's going to be more effective. So why would you not want to have at least the choice of that particular cartridge?
Well, and Aaron, if I can add, ARs or semi-automatic rifles are way easier to shoot. I mean, you give it to a less trained person, it's way more accurate, and there's less recoil than other weapon systems. And frankly, it's easier to shoot. So why also will we not have that as a choice? I mean, just all around, better performing cartridge, easier to shoot, more accurate, more continuity to fire. I mean, that's my choice for defense.
You're exactly right. A person could more easily be accurate and get on target with an AR or a let's just say just a rifle in general than a pistol. Pistols are, let's just say, 3 times the difficulty to run.
Oh, for sure.
Well, Brian, I think that we're going to talk about a topic that's near and dear to your heart, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, this is a good segue, having had that conversation. We're going to talk about AR pistols. So we're actually going to merge the two here. And of course, technically, these are all the components of a rifle just packed into a small package. And AR pistols are really probably one of the largest selling, formats of AR rifle right now. And, with the advent of braces and the way legislation and what the ATF has done with braces has really kind of propelled them further into the forefront. But there's a lot of things that people may or may not understand about these. And having been a manufacturer of ARs and having been a licensed FFL, I have seen a lot of people put things together or order things that they were unhappy with or had malfunctions with, and it's really just got to do with the limitations of what that system was intended to do and how it functions when you shrink it down. So we're just going to talk for a little while about AR pistols and how you can do this yourself totally, or if you're buying one complete, just making sure that you're getting what you think you're getting. I think Eric and Aaron are both going to comment here after a bit about their own path on that note. And I just want to go ahead and start it out with receivers. So that's the heart of any build, is going to be your receiver. Any receiver should be mil-spec. And there's always, guys at the gun show or whatnot, well, are these mil-spec, or these mil-spec? And if it's not mil-spec, it shouldn't have been manufactured. Then the next question would be forged versus billet. And there's nothing wrong with billet, but I got to tell you, billet isn't better. Billet just means it was machined from a block. And technically, a forged receiver can be stronger. I haven't seen anybody break a receiver unless they were pounding on it with a hammer, putting it together the wrong way. So I don't think that that's a huge concern. But what you do want to look for is an upper and a lower that fit snugly together and don't have a lot of play in them. A lot of these newer receivers do have a tension screw in them up through the bottom where the grip is, so you can tension them, and that's nice. But it's really better if you can start out with a set that doesn't have a lot of slop in it to begin with. So those are just kind of the heart of your system. From there, you're going to expand onto the barrel and the bolt group. The barrel and the bolt group are the two things that we're going to 100% control the reliability and functionality of your weapon. The barrel is going to be everything that controls accuracy, and the bolt carrier group is going to be everything that controls your reliable feeding of that round. Now, obviously, there are some other components that are causing those to work in that fashion, but those two items are the two things you really, really do not want to scrimp on. And there's a lot of barrel manufacturers out there. There's a lot of companies that I'll leave nameless that sell barrels for $60, $70, $80. And people are super excited because they shoot so well. They'll shoot everything on a pie plate at 100 yards. And I literally talk to these guys and I'm like, if you're not shooting an inch at 100 yards, off a rest maybe with a pistol especially, but then there's something wrong with your barrel, you know? And bear in mind, everybody's like, oh, is that mil spec? Is that mil spec? Mil spec is 2 inches at 100 yards. I want a rifle that's better than mil spec, and it is not hard to do, you know? Those barrels that are out there, if you're even in the 150, 160 range, you're going to get something that's quality. And one thing about pistols is people want these really small, really compact platforms. And I'm going to suggest that you go to at least 10.5 inches. Now, that doesn't mean you can't build a shorter one, but you might have some functionality concerns. You might have some things that you need to do to get it to function properly if you go shorter. But in that barrel, I would highly recommend looking for 4150 CMV, and that is 4150 chrome vanadium steel. That is going to have one of the highest durability ratings, and I would look for it in nitride, not phosphate, because the nitride coating is actually going to protect your bore and resist rust much better than anything else. So looking for those things, it doesn't mean that stainless is bad. A lot of people are like, well, stainless is more accurate. Stainless will wear out about 5 times as fast as that 4150. And if I build something and I'm proud of it, I want it to last. And same thing with the bolt group. I would highly recommend looking at a nitride bolt group. Look for one that's got an MPI HPT rating. So that's metal particle inspected, and that's typically the bolt head has actually gone through that MPI process to make sure there's no defects or voids in the steel. And then HPT means high pressure tested. So they've actually tested the gas key to make sure that it doesn't bleed off, because those things will really haunt you if you have issues with them. I've seen bolt heads that have broken ears off. I've seen bolts that have loose or improperly installed gas keys, and they'll short stroke and they just can't figure out what's going on, and we just swap the bolt and all of a sudden it works, you know. And that is one thing, having been a builder and been a FFL, I've repaired a lot of guns that guys have pieced together and can't figure out why they work. So those are really, you know, the barrel and the bolt carrier group. Those are the two things you really want to look at. And then you're going to need a handguard, of course, and really avoid that Chinese stuff if you can, man. There's a ton of it out there, and guys are all wound up about it because it's inexpensive and it might look cool, but a lot of that stuff was actually imported with the intent of being used on airsoft and is being sold to the gun market. It's actually an ITAR violation, but if they bring it in for airsoft, it's legal. So it's something you want to watch out for. A lot of those barrel nuts, I'll run into the same thing. Guys built a gun. Well, my handguard won't stay tight. And I'm like, well, what do you got on here? Take a look at it. That barrel nut's made out of recycled beer cans or something, because you don't have to have a steel barrel nut, but it should be a hardened specific type of aluminum if it's an aluminum barrel nut. Yankee Hill uses aluminum barrel nuts. I've never had a problem with them, but I've had several handguards come in that look like a Yankee Hill and thread on like a Yankee Hill, but when you go to tighten it, the aluminum just gives. You can't even properly torque it. And what happens is they get hot one time and then they start unscrewing or coming loose, and it's a bad scenario. So my little spiel on handguards. But lower parts kit, same thing. Nothing wrong with mil-spec. Definitely want to watch some of those cheaper brands. It's okay, but man, you want to make sure that those parts are right. And there's a bajillion LPKs out there, but I just recommend buying one from a known manufacturer. It's not something that you want to buy for $30 on sale. Spend $60, $70, or upgrade to, an ALG or something like that, where you get a little nicer trigger set. Nothing wrong with that. But again, nothing wrong with mil-spec parts, but the most effective increase in accuracy you're going to get if you buy quality components is putting a clean braking trigger in. So that's one of the things that, is easy to upgrade and really doesn't cost that much, that will really improve the functionality of your unit. So I want to talk a little bit about gas systems. On the 10.5 barrel, a carbine length gas functions very well with most ammunition and most modern components. In shorter than 10.5, you're going to go into a pistol length gas system. Pistol length gas systems are very violent. There is so much pressure where the gas comes out of that barrel that it throws the bolt back violently. And what a lot of guys are doing or think is cool is buying these lightweight bolt kits and buying light buffers and all this, get it lighter, get the bolt moving faster. Well, that might work well on an 18-inch match gun, but on a pistol, it's just a recipe for disaster. That pressure coming out of that at that length in the barrel is so hot, and the dwell time that the barrel is actually in the barrel, the bullet is in the barrel, is so short that it just throws that bolt back violently. If you're going to build anything short, even at 10.5, I recommend a full weight carrier, and I typically recommend a heavy, an H1 or H2 buffer. You can even go to an adjustable gas block if you want to, and there's tungsten carbide filled buffers. JP makes a captured spring system along with some others that you can tune the springs on, and that can help. But you really want to avoid those lightweight components in a pistol, in my personal experience, because they will cause you problems. So those are some of the main points. And then getting into what you put on the back of it, you can do the traditional old school tube. I think Olympic Arms with the K23 pistol was one of the first commercially available AR pistols that was like out on the market, and like you could just buy it. It was super cool, and it just had a little piece of foam on the tube, and you know what? They work just fine. But if you want the cool guy stuff, SB Tactical and others have some really nice stuff. SB Tactical's got the new SB4 out. I really like that one. It's super well constructed. It's got QD ports in it, and I mean, I am just really pleased with mine and like the way that it feels and functions. And then also you want to talk a little bit about ammo. There's nothing wrong with running a little heavier bullet weight in these things. They're short. They don't got a lot of barrel length. Nothing wrong with pushing a little heavier projectile out of there. I like to shoot 62 grain or higher. But again, you want to make sure that the barrel you purchased has got the right twist rate on it so that it'll actually stabilize that bullet, because a 77 grain bullet out of a 1 9 7-inch barrel is going to tumble at 30 yards, and well, maybe that's your intended effect, but I doubt it. So that's one of those things that you finding the right ammunition to shoot out of it. And this is you want to get these, they're fun to shoot, you want to practice with them and shoot probably some Plinken ammo, but you definitely want to make sure that if you're going to use this as a defense gun, you want to proof it with the loads that you're going to use in it. And I see this happen with handguns, rifles, AR pistols. People will go buy a box of some self-defense ammo and load their mag up with it. If you haven't run 2 or 3 boxes of that stuff through your gun, I sure wouldn't count on it. You definitely want to make sure that whatever you wind up using is going to function well in your firearm, because there are some combinations you might find don't work. So that's really just kind of a shakedown on AR pistols and what to look for. And some of that translates to rifles too, but there's definitely I've got several AR pistols, and I've got SBRs too. SBRs are super cool, but it takes 9 months to get one, and you pay for a tax stamp. Where with a pistol, if you buy yourself a lower, all the rest of the parts are just like buying a loaf of bread, man. You gotta paper that lower out, but you can get all the rest of those parts and just build it yourself. And man, it is really a fun thing to do. And I think Eric has got something to say about that, because haven't you recently done this?
Most certainly, Brian. And one of the good parts about having a former Class 3 builder as a business partner really helps a lot. So I definitely worked with Brian because of his expertise. I kind of wanted to do a project over time, build from scratch, and see what kind of savings I could get. So just to kind of to name off what we ended up doing, got to learn a lot about gunsmithing as well. But the base is I had purchased a Ballistic Advantage lower actually from Brian, and I've got a BCM blemished upper. That was a decent cost savings. Both these were stripped, by the way. A Ballistic Advantage 10.5 nitride barrel. Awesome freaking barrel. Love that barrel. I'm running a CMMG 9-inch rail with a SB A4 brace that Brian mentioned earlier. Great brace. I had a leftover BCM BCG or bolt carrier group. I put a Battle Comp hybrid brake on there. And I would say this, the most fun was, again, like I stated earlier, it was from scratch. Everything was stripped. With Brian's help and recommendations at the home gunsmithing at my house, I put this all together. And the first time I got to take it to the range was actually my son was in town. Marine Lance Corporal Davis, give him a shout out there. But I will have to admit, the first few rounds I fired through them like, okay, no malfunction, don't blow up on me. You know, I'm kind of joking on that. I didn't think any of that was going to happen, but it was still nice. It ran like a sewing machine. It ran incredible, very accurate for the shorter barrel, which that's very common. Folks might think that it wouldn't be accurate, but in some cases, that they're just as accurate, or sometimes they might be more accurate than some of the longer barrels out there. But definitively, I've ran right around 500 rounds through it. Haven't got to run much more through it, but I plan on doing 1,000 or 1,500 before I clean it, see how it performs. And like Brian mentioned, I think I've settled on the decision to run a MK262 clone, possibly Black Hills or any other manufacturer of quality of the 77 grain open tip match. It seems to be one of the better choices for shorter barrels. Now, I'm still doing research on that, so if anybody out in the audience has some recommendation, feel free to hit us up on social media. But basically, that's the build, and it's a blast. I'm real excited about it. Back to you, Brian.
Man, thanks for sharing that. That's it's cool to have that real life right in front of me scenario based on what I was talking about. And from what Eric has shared there, Aaron, it really sounds like you're the brother in the back seat at this point.
Hey, I am, but I'll tell you what, I'm pretty excited. It's fun to talk about these builds because building ARs, the modularity of AR-15s, that's one of the major selling points too. I've built a handful of AR-15 carbines or rifles, and I love those too. But I'm real excited about this pistol build, and of course, I got a lot of info from you. Why not use the good source that's your business partner, right? I think Eric said something like that too. But mine started a little bit different, and audience and you guys, beware. I am a big BCM fan. So there's going to be a lot of BCM words and acronyms in here. But the point is that I had a 16-inch full upper BCM, hammer forged barrel, all that stuff, but it was an A2 version of that, and I of course moved on to the forward grip long rail system instead of the old A2 type of system. So that's been sitting lonely in my safe. Well, I had that, so that covers my upper receiver group. I'm just going to swap that barrel out, and I also had a lonely lower, a BCM full lower that I purchased right before one of these elections where there was a little bit of a buying scare. Luckily, I got a good price on it. But so then, moving on, so those were the items I already had for this build. From your advice, Brian, I went ahead and got a Ballistic Advantage 10.5 inch also. I believe that's got the Modern Series government profile 1 and 7 twist, and it's got their QPQ nitride finish, which I think you mentioned in your suggestions earlier. I too got the SB Tactical SBA4. Man, that seems to be about the best brace out there from my research. Now, so I have all that stuff ready to roll. I've just got a handful more things to do, and you know how this goes. You kind of wait till you get the cash freed up from other things you're doing. And my birthday's coming up, as yours is yours too, Eric, right? But
No, go figure.
That's weird.
Yes, it is. But we usually get some cash from here and there, and I think I'm going to have enough to finish this off. So now I just need to get my rail, which is going to be a BCM MCMR, which is the M-Lock. I'm going to get that in a 9-inch. I'm just going to go ahead and get a BCM ambidextrous charging handle. Now for my bolt carrier group, on your advice, Brian, I'm going to go ahead and get that azimuth with their black nitride finish on it too. Now for the comp on it, I'm not sure what I'm going to go with at this point. So I think I'm just going to cannibalize the bird cage that's on my upper that I have already. And then eventually I'm going to go ahead and probably either get a battle comp, or I've been also looking at the Noveske KX5, the so-called flaming pig.
They're nice. They're nice.
Yeah, and they look kind of cool too, a little bit different than your standard flash suppressor or a comp. But hey, Brian, I'd like to at least ask you one question here. As we've gotten to know each other through this business and through the podcast, I've of course been really impressed with your knowledge of rifles and ARs and just all around knowledge about firearms. I was curious, how and why did you get into the firearms manufacturing business and starting your own dealership?
Well, I've always been interested in guns, and I've always owned them. And like I said, I got previously I've described how I really kind of catapulted into the upper levels of this stuff when I started shooting competitively, and it became really clear to me that off the shelf stuff wasn't necessarily always the best. And if I knew exactly what I wanted, I could build what I wanted. And it was the same with, reloading. I found out that, when I started shooting match stuff, that I could load a better bullet than I could buy. And it was no different with the ARs. I could actually pick and choose my components and build it exactly how I wanted instead of waiting for the perfect rifle to come out, And that combined with, there was some market stuff, there was some unfortunate events that caused things to get weird in the market, and that kind of pushed me on the financial end because obviously it's a business as well. So it's been kind of a combination of things that pushed me in this direction. But man, I'm so glad that I did it because I'd already had some knowledge, and I'd done the same thing you guys are doing. I'd built a couple rifles, and that was kind of cool. And I realized that there's a whole nother level of that stuff out there. And I was working with some really cool guys and I'm going to call them out because, man, I miss them. Mega Arms was here locally where I live in Washington. They were in Tumwater, and those guys really helped me out with my business and how I got started because they were available. They were selling me uppers. They were selling me lowers. They ran a batch of lowers with my company name on them. I mean, that was just the coolest thing ever. And thank goodness I've still got a couple of those kicking around that are my personal guns. And I've got some SBRs I made too. And that was one of the other things that really interested me was the ability to manufacture SBRs, actually make them as opposed to purchasing them or doing a Form 1. And that was really cool. And, there's a lot of licensing and a lot of stuff that goes along with that. But, in the long run, I think it was worth all the effort. And I have actually closed my FFL out at this point, if anybody's listening. But I'm really glad that I did it. It's something that I hesitate to encourage anyone to do it because it is a lot of work. It is not just, hey, man, I'm going to fill out this form and then I can build guns. No, it's a lot more than that. But it has been a really, really insightful process. I know how that whole process works and working with all that stuff. So that's I don't know if that really answers what you're asking, but it's a little bit of an explanation.
No, that's great, man. I like hearing about that. I think Eric might have a question. Do you, buddy?
Yeah, actually, more of a comment, because I kind of hit on a little bit of it earlier, but I just want to reiterate that everything that Brian has told me, all his recommendations have been spot on. So one of the things I love about this journey is when you meet people that have filtered information, done the research, done the testing and an evaluation, you listen to those folks. So all of Brian's advice, and his help, it may have seemed like I was skimping here and there in this build. I won't name the exact price because I had a lot of help, but I built this AR pistol for very inexpensive, and I would say it's a top notch. I mean, if I spent the money on what the quality product that I ended up with, I'd be looking at $1,200-$1,500 easy. So thanks a lot, Brian.
Oh, not a problem, man. I love being able to help friends out that way. And that was another part of what got me into it, was being able to help out friends and family. And that's one of my biggest clients. I sold to the public, but I'll guarantee I sold more stuff to people I know than people I didn't. And, there's a little bit of mysticism in all this. A lot of people buy guns and just they need to get the factory, and there's nothing wrong with buying a factory BCM. They're great guns. But even Eric was a little concerned about a couple of things. He's like, well, what about the gas block, man? Are we gonna take that somewhere and have it pinned and staked? And I was like, dude, I'm gonna set you up with a barrel that's pre-drilled and pinned. And it was like, he looked at me like I was speaking French. And
I think
when
I
we
smiled.
put it together, he went, oh, I get it. No, it's already done, man. So there's a lot of that stuff that people just don't really get. They may not understand that you can do it that way, or that it's not that big a deal. And I definitely don't encourage anyone to do this without the proper tools. There's definitely, getting the right vice blocks for an actual vice attached to a bench. Don't do this with channel locks and 2x4s like I've seen people do.
Those are a must. Those are a must.
Make sure you have the right wrench. Make sure you have the proper tools. Make sure that you, if you don't own headspace gauges, take it to someone who does and have the headspace checked afterwards, because that can be a real problem if you've got something that's out of spec, and it happens. I've done this long enough that I've, like Eric was saying, I've seen most of the errors that people make, and if someone tells me my gun's doing this or my gun's doing that, I probably already know what's wrong with it, or at least I know where to start, and a lot of those problems are fixed just by, oh, well, yeah, you had the wrong spring in there, or you had the wrong, you had a bolt that didn't match your chamber, or something, or what have you. But there's definitely, I agree, and that's what I look for when I go to get into something I don't know about. Say, for instance, it was boats. I'd go talk to my buddy that's been boating for 40 years as opposed to a salesman, because he's going to sell me what makes him money. The guy that's been boating for 40 years can tell me this works and this don't. So good stuff, man.
Yeah, this is a good topic. This is a fun topic. We've been excited to do this one for a while. Now, I think we're getting pretty close to the end of the show. Do you guys want to go ahead and kick off accountability?
Yeah, no, I think accountability is, it's time for that. We've been chatting for quite a while here, so we'll get to wrapping it up. So why don't you go first, Eric?
Okay, Brian, thanks a lot. So I will say I had only one jiu-jitsu session this week, just the way things shook out. I did have 4 early morning workouts. I had to admit, this is seeming like a broken record. I came down with some bursitis from I think it's probably from some of the wrestling and a lot of the jiu-jitsu on the elbow, but it's doing a lot better today. So I've primarily been doing rowing and biking for my cardio, and I can do some kettlebells, and I've been staying off pull-ups for the bursitis. But anyway, I'm getting something done. So regarding pistol, I did get 5 dry fire sessions in this week, and I did the drill of the week or drill of the month as we're prescribing it, the 10 yards and at least 50 points. In the indoor range, I shot 100. When I shot it at Brian's, I was lucky to get, I think it was 76 points. So I definitely have some improvement in my precision shooting. So we'll see how the 15 yards goes the next drill. Aaron, how about you?
Sure. I'll just say I had my standard weekly baseline of cardio and jiu-jitsu and dry fire every day. But I had a pretty fun week of things that I did to get better. First off, on Friday night, I've talked about this before. We have what's called a reflex class for jiu-jitsu, which is what you guys might call an intermediate class. The neat thing was I was sitting there in the locker room getting geared up, ready to go, and this real tall guy walks right up to me. I thought, man, that guy's tall. And then he comes up to me and just shakes my hand with this big smile on his face, and then I realize it's Huron Gracie.
Awesome.
So
Wow.
yeah, and so people that may not know that, he is one of the brothers that has started Gracie University, and it has essentially started the spread of course, the Gracie, I think, franchises throughout the United States. And, of course, he and his brother are grandsons of Elio Gracie. So I'll tell you what, I mean, it was a lot of fun. I mean, he had a lot of insights. I mean, it was world-class instruction. And, again, when you get world-class instruction, I mean, you just eat it up. It's just a lot of fun. Now, a few takeaways that were real interesting to me. Number one, he said when he was talking about, the self-defense aspect of jiu-jitsu, he said, we learn all these techniques, these hundreds of techniques and moves. He goes, but you want to know what I would do if I got into a fight out in the parking lot here? More than likely, I would either use side control or mount and hip pressure control and simply wear the person out and not even go to a submission, which I found that really interesting. And, I mean, I'll tell you, Eric, like you've talked about, I mean, side control can really wear an uninitiated person out, right?
Oh, definitely. And as you were stating that, I was sitting there thinking about that. If you've got world-class mount or world-class side control, you can hold down the heaviest, strongest person and they're not getting out. So yeah, that's a very interesting point, and I think very telling. Go ahead, Aaron.
Well, and so then when it was time for us to do our sparring rounds, he just stopped the class and he said, guys, now I notice a lot of the time in sparring, students want to move from technique to technique to technique. And he's saying that there's not anything necessarily wrong with that, but what I want you to do, what I would rather see is that you get a position of control and you relax and hold that position for 30 or 40 seconds. And on the contrary, the person that is being controlled, you get used to being in that controlled position for 30 or 40 seconds. So there's a lot of learning that's going on in those 30 or 40 seconds. I again found that pretty profound when it comes to, new sparring students. You do just kind of want to go really fast. Again, that was another really good takeaway. So the other thing I did this week, again, our last guest, Mike Brown, which, man, I really had a good time doing that episode and listening to it a couple of times. I mean, that guy's full of wisdom. Again, I have the pleasure of having that guy, within 15 miles from me. And so I took my second private lesson from him. And we, of course, the lesson focused on a lot of technical aspects. We keyed in on my trigger release, specifically my trigger release and reset, and my quality of dry fire, and again, the reading of my sights during shooting. But one interesting thing that he noticed, and we really talked about a lot, is that he noticed that I rushed everything. And I can say, I think I've said this in another podcast, that one of my problems is I get to the line in a match, and when that buzzer goes off, I just go fast. I just go. And I, unfortunately, make some mistakes when I do that. Well, he noticed that I rushed even loading my magazines. And he said, I want you to slow down, Aaron, because I think that this is a symptom of you just being a person that rushes through things. And he said, what you need to do is take every task that you're doing here and only do it at the speed that you need to get the task done. And he thinks that could also, of course, spill in over to relaxing my mind when I'm doing any shooting, doing any competing. I mean, I found that pretty good insight. And I definitely took that to heart, and I've been slowing down a lot of things that I do now. I explained to him that part of the habit is probably the fact that I'm kind of a higher level accountant that has to get a lot of work done really fast. So I do have a habit of speeding through things, but that's another topic for another day. But so then, Eric, you'll appreciate this. He, of course, went through the Lanny Basham protocol that you are very familiar with. And he taught me with very detailed notes how to create my own affirmation statement. I mean, of course, this applies to anything that you're wanting to excel at, but in this instance, I'm trying to class up to master in IDPA. And so, of course, I worked really hard and came up with a really good affirmation statement, and I need to ramp up how many times I say that, but I've been doing it at least 3 or 4 times a day, and I recorded it on my phone so I could listen to it in my car. But I'm looking forward to seeing the fruits of that effort. And that's all I've got for this week, guys.
And Aaron,
Nice
if I can add, Aaron, it will work because you're making yourself believe that you are masterclass. And I promise you that's one of the things that Mike mentioned is that folks that use that method, it increases their self-image, which is typically the last thing they're really needing to get them to that next level. So I know you're going to see fruit from that.
Well, and I can say honestly, I mean, I am usually shooting about the expert level, and I can run the classifier raw master most of the time, but it's just that little handful of small percentage points of accuracy and just a smidge more speed to get me up there. And of course, but the point is, I don't want to just score master on the qualifier. I want to compete at the master level. So that is definitely what my goal statement is.
Nice. And I believe you will.
I'm working on it.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, I had again a fairly typical week. I got a couple CrossFits in, a couple jiu-jitsus, and a couple lifting sessions. So I won't go into detail on those because it's kind of what I have been doing every week. But the thing that I love about sharing that each week is that I am actually doing that every week. I may be missing one here or there. I missed a jiu-jitsu tonight so that we could record, but that's one of the things that I'm willing to give up so that we can do this because we want to bring this vision to everyone. I'll share a couple cool things I did this week that go into my accountability, and one of them is I've been reading some of Jocko's field manual before I go to bed. And, it's a super easy read. Anybody that's familiar with it, don't be intimidated by that book. It is so cool to look at, and it's something you can read over and over and over again. And there's a bunch of positive affirmations in there, buddy.
Love it.
So it's one of those things that just, it helps me relax and focus on what I want to get, what I want to get done with my life. And it's a good thing to read when you're going to bed too, man. It's just getting your head in the right spot.
I just have to say that my wife loves that book too. She's read it several times.
Yes.
Yeah, that is a great book.
And if you, anybody you know that needs to be introduced to this kind of path, to borrow the term, man, just buy them that book, because it's so easy to pick up and start to digest some of that stuff.
It is certainly a prescription to get you on this path. You're right, buddy.
Absolutely.
What else you have?
And the highlight of my week, this last weekend, I went and messed around in Southwest Washington, and we went up to Mount St. Helens to the observatory at Johnson Ridge and checked all that out, because I had a friend that had never seen that before and was kind of unaware of that whole situation, and did that. And then the following day went down and did the ape caves, and that is, if you live in this area and you have not done that, you have got to do it. It's, you can have no skill and go check it out and still be blown away. But if you've got a little bit of skill with just walking on rocks and picking paths, man, if you do that upper tunnel, it's about 1.5 miles underground. And you've got to have flashlights and backup batteries, because you are underground that whole time. It is the neatest thing. And what these are is empty lava tubes. And in the easy part, you get down to the end, and there's actually even a belly crawl that goes into a chamber that's maybe, 4 feet by 7 feet, and there's like 5 of us in there. It was all cramped, It was super cool, though, because there was a spot where it's only about 10 or 11 inches tall, where you're climbing on your stomach on sand to get into that back chamber to the very, very end of where it bottoms out. And then up in the higher end, there's a couple of spots where you actually got to scale a little something to get up and get around stuff. And it's, man, it is just really cool. And that upper one, you go all the way that way underground, and then there's an exit at the top, so you don't have to go all the way back through it. But, man, that was the highlight of my week. And that was actually like a real, I felt that was a real hike, because you're pushing yourself around, you're lifting yourself up, you're walking cautiously, and your ankles are twisting, and you're stabilizing yourself. Let me tell you, my hamstrings were shot the next day at CrossFit. I'm still feeling them today, but that was my accountability for the week, man. But we got a drill to talk about, right?
Amen.
Oh, I didn't talk about my drill. I did shoot my drill. I shot my drill, and I shot a 99, and Eric was so mad.
Oh, I was only mad with myself, but I was glad for you. You did awesome, man.
Guys, I completely forgot to give mine too. Yeah, I went ahead and shot that. What I've been doing is I've been shooting the drills just 3 times and using that little sampling size. So my first one, I made a 96. Second, a 93, and then my third, a 97. So
hey, that's good average, man.
I'd say that is the average.
Well, we'll see how I do going further out. These eyes aren't helping me the further I get out, so to be honest.
Yeah. Well, hey, I'll go ahead and give you the prescription for this week before we close it out. We are doing the same thing. This is a B8 bull, just like we did last time, and this is 10 shots. And our goal is minimum 50 points. Again, more is better. And for most people that are familiar shooting, it's going to be really easy to score more than 50. But we want to set a bar that everyone can come along on the ride for. So, but we're going to move it back to 15 yards. So this bull's just going to get a little more challenging at that distance. And, I have some of those eye focus issues when we get out a little further, so this will be more challenging for me. But 15 yards, 10 rounds on a B8 bull, looking for a minimum score of 50. But I think most of us out there are going to actually blow that 50 away. And I believe you can, and I believe I can. And I know that you have the ability to do it even if you don't do it on your first try. And, just settle down. Let the sights come to rest. Squeeze the trigger and push that bullet right through the X. That's all we need to do. There's no rush on this. If you want to shoot a couple quick to see what happens, knock yourself out. But that's not the point of this drill. The point of this drill is getting accustomed to bringing your sights back to center and being relaxed when you release that next shot. Because tensing up and slapping the trigger and shoving them downrange as fast as you can is never going to work out. Not for accuracy. You may get scores on a 3-gun target that way, but this is all about accuracy. So that's the drill for this week. 15 yards, 10 rounds. Post your scores. Post your targets. We'll do the same. So anything else from you guys?
I'm good.
I think that's about it for this week, guys.
All right, man. Well, hey, as always, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week. Out.
Hey everyone, Aaron here. One more thing before we call it a show. We've had a contest going on to give 2 holsters away from our show sponsor, Tenacor. Just have to say now that they are making some of the best holsters and the most innovative holsters on the market. So make sure you go to their website and check them out. That's at tenacor.com. Again, that's TENICOR.com. Now, so this week, we're going to go ahead and give away that second holster, Scott.1775. You are a winner, buddy. Again, that's Scott.1775. Go out to your Instagram Messenger and check for a message from us to see how you can redeem your holster. And we'd like to thank everybody that entered the contest. And most of all, thanks so much for listening. And make sure you share the show and help us get the word out about the Evolution Security Podcast. Until next time, thanks so much.